My mother defends her boyfriend after destroying our deceased father's things because it was to accelerate the grieving process. But we accelerated the eviction process when my mom was in college. She got pregnant with me. My dad was her boyfriend at the time, but she did not want to have a baby at that stage of life. After I was born, she broke up with my dad and decided to give up all her custodial rights. Over me, she left me completely in my dad's care and wanted nothing to do with me. From that moment on, my dad became my everything. He took on the responsibility of raising me alone, although with a lot of help from my grandparents. Honestly, I did not feel like I was missing anything. My dad was always loving and present in my life. My grandparents were also amazing. They were warm, kind, and showered me with so much love that I never felt like there was a void in my life. The three of them, my dad and my grandparents, were my family. My mom never bothered to check on me. She never called me, or visited me, or tried to know anything about my life. Everything remained the same until I turned 6 years old. By then, my dad had worked hard and got a great job at a good company. We were able to move out of my grandparents' house and start living on our own, the fresh start we needed. But suddenly my mom decided to show up again. After years of being absent from my life, she suddenly wanted to be a part of it. She said she missed my dad and wanted to be a part of our family. Honestly, I think most people in my position would have been happy to have their mother back in their life. But even as a child, I could not make myself like her. There was just something about her that bothered me, even when I did not fully understand why. I never understood what my dad saw in her, or why he forgave her so quickly. He seemed so in love with her, almost blinded by how much he still loved her. If it were up to me, I would not have wanted anything to do with her. She always acted like she was some kind of cool mom. From the beginning, she insisted that I call her by her name, instead of addressing her as mom or mother, especially in public. She thought that made her seem younger or closer, but to me it was just weird. In high school, every time I brought friends over, she acted overly friendly with everyone, especially with the guys. This obviously was not normal and made me feel embarrassed. I remember how many of my guy friends would tell me they were in love with her. I hated hearing that, but I could not blame them, because my mom acted intentionally, inappropriately with them. She would wear overly revealing clothes and always made comments to them. Once during my graduation party, some friends and I were by the pool. Suddenly my mom showed up in a bikini so small that it left nothing to the imagination. Then she laid down and asked one of my friends to rub sunscreen on her. My other friends started cheering and laughing. It was awkward and really humiliating for me. I remember wishing with all my might that she would just go back inside and let me have a peaceful day with my friends. It was frustrating because I clearly saw what was happening, but he either didn't see it or chose to ignore it. Deep down, I always knew my mom didn't really love him. She was with him because it was easy and convenient. He was stable, financially secure, and completely devoted to her. She got everything she wanted from him, but I don't think she ever gave him the same kind of love. In return, when she got pregnant with my brother, it was another complicated situation. At first, she was upset. She didn't want another baby and told my dad she planned to have an abortion. She kept saying it would ruin her perfect body. They fought constantly, and it wasn't easy to be around them during that time. But eventually, for reasons I will never fully understand, she changed her mind and decided to keep the baby. She went ahead with the pregnancy, and for that, I am very grateful. I have a great love for my brother. I cannot imagine my life without him, and despite everything else, I am glad that he is here. Just like my mom was never a mother to me, she was not one to my brother either. It was always my dad and I who took care of him. She was completely absent in everything related to motherhood. She never cooked for us and never spent time with us as a family. It was like she did not care if we lived or died, as long as she could keep shopping or going out with her friends, with my dad's money, every day. Because of all this, it was completely natural that my dad, my brother, and I became very close. With the passing of the years, we were a unit, our own little family within the larger household. We supported each other, and we understood each other in a way that she never could. Over time, we simply accepted that this was how things were. My brother and I stopped expecting anything from her. We rarely spoke to her or spent time with her, unless it was necessary. The only times we really saw her were when we visited my dad, after we had moved out. Then everything changed just a year ago when my dad got sick. After feeling unwell for a while, he had a series of tests and was diagnosed with an illness. What followed was a long and exhausting journey of treatments. My mom, on the other hand, was completely disconnected from the situation. She acted as if it was no big deal that her husband, the father of her children, was battling an illness. She carried on with her life as if nothing had changed. She kept busy with her usual routine of travel, shopping, and attending parties with friends. It was crazy and deeply painful to see how little she cared. My brother and I did everything we could for my dad, but her lack of support made everything so much harder. Despite all the effort and treatment, we eventually lost him. My dad passed away after months of fighting, and the loss has been incredibly painful for both my brother and me. I cannot even begin to describe how much we miss him every day and what we would give to have him back. What makes everything worse is seeing the way our mother has acted since his passing. To her, it seems like losing him was no big deal. She has not shown any kind of real pain or sadness, nor any signs that she even misses him. It is as if his death had not affected her in the least. Fortunately, my dad had planned his will. He made sure that my brother and I inherited his house, while my mom received the money from his bank account. When the will was read, my mom was furious that she did not receive the house. She felt entitled to it and did not hide her anger. She even threatened to sue us for it, so that we would give her the house. She thought she could intimidate us, so that we would give her what she wanted. But after consulting with lawyers, she must have understood that she did not have a chance. She finally calmed down and approached us with a request. She wanted to stay in the house without paying rent. I refused immediately. I told her that if she wanted to stay in the house, she would have to pay rent like any other tenant. That led to a big argument. She thought I was being unfair to her, and that I was treating her like that. For no reason, she also said what my dad would think of all this, because she knew him very well, which I don't think is necessarily true. I thought Dad would have wanted her to stay in the house without paying rent. She didn't like my answer very much, but the house now belonged to us. It was no longer her decision. If she wanted to stay, she would have to pay. It's that simple. In the end, she agreed, reluctantly, to pay a minimum amount of rent. The truth is that my brother and I are doing well financially. We really don't need the money. So for us, this wasn't about the rent itself. We just wanted to make it clear that that was no longer her house, and we wanted to set boundaries by creating a landlord-tenant agreement. We also made sure that if things ever went south in the future, we would have the legal right to kick her out if necessary. Since Dad's passing, Mom has wasted no time in going back to her old ways. She started dating men left and right, which is no surprise to anyone. That's just how she has always been. But then 2 months ago, she introduced us to someone new. Body is around our age. And to say that it is gross to see our mother dating someone much younger than her would be an understatement. Body seems to hate my brother and me. He has never shown his good side to us, and things have been getting worse little by little. You see, since Dad's death, my brother and I have been sorting and packing his belongings from the house. We have done it very carefully, taking our time, making sure everything was packed and moved with respect for this moment. We had already packed and moved most of Dad's belongings, but there were still some boxes in the attic from the upper floor. Those boxes contained some of Dad's heaviest items, and it was not possible to move them all at once. So we decided to take care of them gradually. We thought they were safe where they were, at least for the moment. But with Buddy, that was not the case. He has been complaining nonstop about how we are handling Dad's things. According to him, we are making a big deal out of carefully packing and storing everything. He suggested several times that we should just throw it all away. Then this week, what brings me here happened. My brother and I went to the house to finally take the last of Dad's belongings, only to discover that the top floor attic was completely empty. We stood there in disbelief. Those boxes, the last pieces of Dad's life that we had not yet moved, were gone. When we asked Mom, she acted like she had no idea where the boxes were. The next person who might know was Cody. His answer left me completely furious. He said as the most casual thing in the world that he had thrown them away. He said the boxes, they were taking up too much space in the attic, and that he needed the space to move some of his things. There. It was better for him to get rid of those boxes and move on. Those boxes were not just some old things to us. They were pieces of our father's life. Memories that we will never have again. To clarify, Body lives in the house without paying rent, while my mom only charges us a very small rent. Very symbolic, compared to what all the neighbors pay in the area for similar houses. It's a 4-bedroom house, and those boxes were in an upstairs attic that Mom rarely used or stored anything. If Body didn't like the boxes there, he could have called us, my brother, and I would have gone immediately to move them ourselves. Body absolutely did not have to throw those boxes away. Mom could have also told us. At this point, it was clear that Body had thrown away Dad's belongings. Out of spite, he really doesn't need the space. There is plenty of it in the house. But rather it bothers him that there are things of my father there. The first thing I did was yell at Body. My brother, who was as angry as I was, approached Body and threatened to hit him. At that moment, Body was no longer so arrogant. He seemed scared by how we confronted him. He started backing away from us. But he was still talking, insisting that he had checked the boxes himself and had decided that they were just trash and that they were not worth keeping. My mom made things even worse when she intervened to defend Body. Until that moment, she had been acting as if she knew nothing about the situation. She feigned innocence, pretending that she had no idea that the boxes were gone. But when Body started to feel the pressure, she stepped in to support him. To her, what Body did was completely reasonable. She wanted to make it seem like an act of kindness from Body because he was simply worried about us. She had the nerve to claim that he did it just to help us speed up our grieving process. I responded to my mom with anger and all the frustration I felt that neither she nor Body had the right to decide how my brother and I should grieve. We had just lost our dad, and it was completely normal that we would take time to process that loss. Although those boxes might contain what they considered trash, it was not her place to throw it away without even talking to us. First, my mom mocked what she said next. She told me I was exactly like my dad, but she did it as if it were some kind of insult. She said it was exasperating how I could never let anything go. At that point, my brother reached his limit. He looked her straight in the eyes and told her that if Dad had not married her, he would have kicked her out of his life a long time ago. Body and Mom kept trying to argue, but I told her, without consulting my brother, because I knew he would think the same, that from now on, they should start paying the full rent of what the house is worth in the neighborhood, plus an extra yes, for it had been transformed into one of the most expensive houses in the neighborhood, and I could do it because the contract had a clause to increase the price up to a certain limit, and I took the rent up to the limit. Of course, they did not like what they heard and protested, but at that point I told them they can pay, or they could pack their bags and get all their junk out of the house. My mom keeps harassing us by text, saying that we cannot do this too. She says Body feels emasculated by the way my brother and I confronted him. She claims that we were too aggressive, that we made him feel small and humiliated. Maybe she should date real men and not eunuchs who feel bad about a confrontation. He did not feel small and humiliated when he threw things in the trash. I don't know why he feels that way now. Update 1. It has been a week since my post, and although my brother and I have gotten a sort of revenge by raising a rent, we are still trying to decide what to do with everything that has happened, whether to take legal action against our mother and Body for throwing away the boxes. We have spoken with a lawyer, and unless we can prove what those boxes contained and their value, it is a trial where we have little to gain, because they could have gold bars, which was not the case, or dirty old socks. We know she had, but besides containing things without a great monetary value, but sentimental value, we have no way to prove it in front of a judge. I mean, if they're dirty socks, the judge is going to think that we are only doing this out of revenge against my mother. So that is momentarily under consideration To add more drama to my story out of nowhere, my mom just announced that she will marry Body. Our mother has decided to marry the same man who disrespected us, who disrespected our dad, and who did not show an ounce of remorse for throwing away his belongings. She made the big announcement on Facebook for everyone to see, since she is very angry with us because we raised the rent that she will have to start paying next month. Her announcement post had several pictures of her and Body, all lovey-dovey, showing off her engagement ring, as if she was starring in a fairy tale. Romantic in the caption, she expressed how much no man had made her feel the way Body did, and how he made her happier than ever in her whole life. If that doesn't seem like a message directed at us. And what happened? What I will tell you now may clear up all doubts. She added that she wished she had met him sooner. Understandably, everyone is surprised and upset. My grandparents are the first to be furious with her. They are not only furious about what happened with the boxes, but how bad this all looks. They think about my brother and I, that the timing could not be worse. It has not even been a year since my father passed away. Update 2. It has been 2 weeks since my last update. And for everyone who suggested that we take our mom and Body to court for throwing away the boxes, we have decided not to do it. It is not because we agree with what they did. We are far from agreeing, but because the legal process seems more trouble than it is worth, both emotionally and practically. Instead, my brother and I have made a clear decision. We're going to kick them out of the house. We plan to give them a formal 1-month notice to leave. Once they are gone, we will rent the property to someone else at a much more reasonable price, something much closer to its real value. Selling it is not an option. This house is the last tangible connection we have with Dad. It is where we grew up, where so many of our memories with him were made, and there is no way we are letting it go. We are simply not ready to part with something so deeply tied to Dad's legacy. Anyway, this week, my mom started sending out her wedding invitations. She even sent one to my brother and me. We had thought that we were not getting one, but it is sure a way to rub it in our faces. When my brother and I declined the invitation, she did not get the hint. She tried to reach out to us directly, acting like we were the ones who were in the wrong for not attending. She said that even though we had been so cruel to her over some silly boxes, by raising the rent on the house on her own mother, she was still extending us the courtesy to witness this very special day. She called it the day she would marry the love of her life. It was clear she wanted to press the sore and get revenge for what we had done. We told her we would not attend, and that she could celebrate the love of her life without us. Of course, instead of reflecting on her actions, my mom resorted to Facebook to play the victim. She made a dramatic post about how some family members were boycotting her wedding, and that because of those family members, without naming us, she was going to feel very alone on that day. It's really funny how she paints herself as the affected party, as the victim, when she is the one who has disrespected us and has hurt us continuously. But even though she sees us as bad children, we will still send her a gift for her wedding. It might not be the gift that she expects, but it's one that comes from our hearts. Update 3. After speaking with a lawyer, my brother and I sent our mom an official notice to vacate the house. We also made it clear that if she did not move out on time, we were prepared to take legal action against her for throwing away our dad's belongings and demand compensation for their value. This was not an empty threat. Now, we have some proof of the contents of those boxes. My brother thought he might have some pictures of their contents, and after searching his gallery for several days, he found what some of them contained. It is not completely visible, because the pictures are just the boxes open, and there are many things in the background that are not shown, but it's a start. It's not surprising that my mom has not received this news well. She called us again crying and furious, saying that this is the worst wedding gift children can give to their mother. She complained that she liked living in such a big house, and that they planned to continue doing so after the wedding. It was almost comical, as if she expected us to overlook everything she has done, just because we were going to feel guilty for her. But we told her she has until the date indicated on the document, whether she likes it or not. My brother has also told her it is an act of kindness because it will help her accelerate the grieving process of losing the house. Aside from all of this, my mom is furious that no one in the family plans to attend her wedding, not even relatives on her side. She is blaming us for turning everyone against her, which in a way could be partially true. I've been very open about what Body did with Dad's belongings and how disrespectful they both have been to everyone who has asked me about it. I have told them the whole story, and at least the decent people are angry with her. Many in the family do not understand why she is rushing to get married to someone half her age, especially under these circumstances. It is not just that she has moved on quickly after Dad's death. It is about her choice of partner and everything that has happened, which is at least suspicious. The bottom line is that my mom now has no choice but to move out of the house, whether she ends up marrying Body or not. It is time to take out the trash. Update 4. It has been 2 months since my last update. As expected, my mom and Body refused to respect our notice and leave the house on time. When the day came for them to move out, Mom openly defied us, telling us that she would take us to court if we tried to enforce the notice. We knew this was going to happen, but we were prepared and with a surprise gift to ruin her wedding. If she wants to play on this field, we can too. At that moment, my brother and I discussed how to handle the situation, and honestly, we decided to be a little vengeful. Not much, well, yes, just as she had been with us. We thought her wedding would be the perfect opportunity to show her that every action has a consequence. We knew that she and Body would be out all day, celebrating, so we patiently waited for the right moment. When the day finally came, we made our move, since our keys were still the same, and we had full access to the house we went in. We packed all of Body and Mom's belongings and put them right on the curb. We did not stop there. My brother and uncle went the extra mile to change all the locks and install security cameras. We wanted to make sure that if Mom and Body tried to put up a fight, we would have all the evidence needed to make the moment even more beautiful. We invited some of our family over for dinner that night. Everyone knew Mom and Body would not take kindly to their eviction and wanted to see their reaction. Late that night, Mom and Body finally came back, and it was clear that they were somewhat drunk. They couldn't get the key in right, so it took them a while to realize that it wasn't working. At the door, they were so focused on getting in that it took them a bit to realize that something was not right. Finally, they started banging on the door when they couldn't get in, and that's when my brother and I opened the door. We told them that this was not the time to knock on the door at strangers' houses. That's when she realized that we had changed the lock and that they were not going to be able to get in there. But before any of us could say much more, some relatives started coming out, including my grandfather. He told her quite clearly, loud enough for the neighbors to hear, that the house belonged to us and that they had violated the eviction order. Body tried to barge in and continue arguing. I guess in these months he grew a pair, and it's no longer correct to call him a eunuch. He was furious, with a face red with rage, while trying to defend his right to live there. But my brother was not going to allow it. He and my uncle pushed Body when he tried to get closer. My brother then threatened to call the police if they did not leave immediately. At that moment, I pointed out where all their things were. Legally, we can leave them outside, although they were not in plain sight, but on the side of the house. I told my mom that all they had to do was take their things and leave without further argument, without further drama. For a moment, both Mom and Body looked outraged and humiliated, so they loaded some things in their car and left. Although they left many other things that they could not take. I hope they pick them up quickly, because it is not like being outdoors and without security. They're going to be protected for a long time. Update 5. For those who asked, what happened to the remaining boxes of my mom and Body? I'm going to start with that. They took all the boxes, but I do not know if it was them or other people, because my mother came to ask me about the remaining boxes. I told her that if they were not where I left them, then I had no answer for her. They may have been stolen, or she just wants to bother me. My answer to her is more or less the same. I do not care. Also, we have sued Body for throwing away my dad's boxes, and as I said, no. It has been the most productive thing we could have done. with our time. But at least the judge has ordered a payment of $2,000, also to my mother, because during the time she lived in my house, both with the eviction order and the time she refused to leave. She did not pay rent once. Another $2,500 from my mother. I have a talk about Body too, who probably thought that by marrying an older woman, he would get a house. But he got an older lady, was kicked out of a house, and on top of that with a $2,000 bill to pay. I do not think it was the deal of the century for him. That's why when I met him, he did not seem like the brightest bulb in the house. At least he did not pay for the wedding as far as I know. That has all come out of my mother and the money that she had received from my father. But he did have his moment of brilliance. When requesting the annulment of the marriage with my mother, I do not know where Body is gone now. But my mother is living in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. If maybe she had not done what she did with the boxes, today she would still be living in my house. Instead now, there are tenants who do value the house enough to not lose it, and they pay on time, which guarantees them not losing their boxes.